Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. Alright, hi, this is Attican and welcome to the continuation of our Railway Empire Back to Basics series. We're going to do another video on scenario planning, and this time we're going to look at Germany for two reasons. One, look at this. I've never finished it. Let me explain. I have videos out there on Germany, and in fact it's in the Perfect Pursuit of Perfection series. But I got toward the end of it, or I don't know, 3/4 of the way through or whatever, however far the videos go, and I realized I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to get a perfect score. And I'll be honest with you, I got mad and quit. I just took my ball and went home. And shame on me, but that's what happened. So we're going to make amends and do this one eventually. But right now, we're going to talk about how to plan for it. And it's set in 1850. It's called Patchwork. And it's considered hard. It is. It is quite hard, I think. And we're going to, of course, we would do it with very hard AI. We can see we start with 1 million marks in Castle. We have a couple of competitors, and there's no snowfall, thank goodness. Territories are on. This is the new concept they introduced. I'll show you that in a minute. Travelers is off. That came later with Japan. So let's go into this. And for what we're going to do, it doesn't matter who we use. I can tell you that who we're going to use, or I'm going to use, is the industrialist, Roger, but let's just take a look. You can do this with the lady, of course. The lady's pretty awesome. All right, so let's take a look at this map. First thing we see, we go into rail construction. We see these areas that are marked in red. And you can see they're very much defined areas marked in red. And here's our place. So we start in this territory called Hesse. And we have Kassel making sausage, Frankfurt making pastries, and Worms making pastries. And let me do my one-time apology. I won't apologize again for this during this playthrough, but I will butcher these names. I totally appreciate those of you who tried to send me notes saying this is how you say such and such. Don't even bother. Look, I'm a hillbilly. I can barely speak English. Surely you don't expect me to be able to pronounce German names. So it's not going to happen. Let's not. I love to learn things, but learning how to say Gütersloh properly is not one of those things that is high on my list. So if you live there, I apologize, but it's Gütersloh on in this series of videos. So. Let's see, where were we? So we want to talk about planning, and I want to, and first of all, of course, to make a plan, you figure out what's different in this scenario. And we see two things. These territories, we're going to have to hit this new thing here that's called territory, and we can go out here and purchase these things for marks. So this one costs 600,000 marks. This one's 4 million, Brandenburg. Hanover is 1.8 million. Westphalia is 850. It's fairly reasonable. Rhineland is 1.2 million. You get the idea. It goes on and on. They're more expensive. They tell you how many cities, how many rural businesses, and how much existing population there is in that region. And that's what drives up the costs. And this is where one of our competitors, this old Don Lorenzo, or whatever they call him in the German version, he's down here, the gangster's down here in Bavaria. And then if we go up here to the north a little bit, we'll see in Brandenburg, who'd we draw? We got Trixie. So we've got Trixie up here in this area. We've got Don Lorenzo down here, and we're over here. So that's one difference, the territory. We're going to spend a lot of money to expand because we don't have the rights to just go there immediately. Second thing, of course, the supply chain. The supply chain is quite different, and I'll get into that a little bit later in more detail. But basically, our beer meat, if we're thinking beer meat, it's sausage. Sausage is the meat, and pastries actually are the beer. It's a little confusing, but those are the first ones requested. So you can see in your cities the core 6 that we always have. This is the equivalent of cattle. Actually, in this case, these are the equivalent of corn, I think. Then the grain is grain, and the sausages are the equivalent of the meat in other scenarios, like in the Americas. And the pastries down here need wheat, and they're the equivalent of beer. So, so those are your kind of your big 6 things that they start off with that every city needs, and then you can see it. The demands change as you go over time. And again, we'll go over that in a minute. Now, I wanted to do 2 types of plans. The first plan would be, what if you've never played this? And I'll give you a spoiler alert now, and you can decide. I'm going to go through this as if I've never seen this. I don't know what's coming, and tell you how to make a plan. That's not going to take very long. And then I'll tell you when that's done. When we get into the other one, and maybe you'll want to stop right there and not listen to that, because that's going to tell you how I'm going to attack the whole thing, and it assumes that you have knowledge of what's coming. Okay, so here we are. We've just opened this up. We're Roger or the lady or Doc or whoever we are, and we see we're in Castle, and we see this. Connect 4 stations and do a 200,000 mark quarterly profit. Okay, so we have to do 2 things then big. We have to create an engine, no matter what those tasks are. We have to create an economic engine, build a footprint, and have something running, or have some industries or combinations of all that, which gives us some money. Without the money, we're going to die. We will not make any of our goals. And then secondarily, we have to, as much as possible, stay focused on these tasks and get them done. Now, the engine will drive that one automatically. If we build a good engine, we will get that profit at some point. Connecting the 4 cities could very easily be part of our engine. So I would look at this and say, and by the way, and I'll going to give you the short version so we don't have to look through all the details. There's only 2 raw materials in Hesse that we can use right now that our cities want. They want the wheat or grain, and they want the veggies here, look like potatoes. They don't want fruit yet. They're not big enough cities. All the cities on this whole map are really small. They don't want the hops. They don't want the milk. They don't want the peat. They don't want the iron ore. They just want these 2. So I think a rather obvious start would be Kassel to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to Worms, and then hook in veggies, and that's our 4. And then it'll take some money, but build up some money, and definitely hook in the grain, because all 3 cities can use that. And that would be how you would start. And so that would get rid of your 4, and that would give you a small engine, not a very good one, but a small, it's the best you can do on this map, really, to start. And that would give you a plan. Now, you'd have to ask yourself, do I want to use super stations or regular stations? I suspect almost all of you would say super stations with the auto signals. So you'd slap one down there, you'd slap one down there, you'd run lines between them, slap one down here, run lines between them, and then hook in your other stuff. Then you have to ask yourself what's your warehousing strategy going to be. If you like to do early warehouses and put raw materials in warehouses, then you're going to need to put one somewhere, or maybe do a pass-through warehouse, or maybe you would even make your first line a pass-through through those veggies. And in fact, if you're going to do that, I would recommend make that a warehouse, not a station, and then you can pull the fruit over there, the peat when it becomes needed, whatever, and make that a pass-through. So you might choose to do a pass-through station. That would be a reasonable, good approach. Castle to here to a warehouse to here, and you could start with a small warehouse, so that a regular warehouse with signaling control. Then you've got stuff going back and forth. Then you could either, to get your 4th one, you could either go over here and hook in the grain, or go down here, hook in Worms. Either way would work, and then you could hook this into those lines or into a warehouse, or however you want to do it. That's up to you what strategy you'd want. For me, I would not use warehouses too early, particularly in this kind of a thing. because you get paid immediately when you ship goods into the city. The warehouse, you only get paid as the cities use the goods. The cities are very slow consumers, so I would prefer to be shipping stuff into the city storage. Let me show you what I mean. I would prefer to be shipping stuff into here. See how there's 20 meat? There's room for more potatoes in the city. But if I put those veggies, if I put those veggies in a warehouse, it's going to consume 0.2 a week. So imagine that I ran 8 potatoes into a warehouse connected to Castle. I get 0 money for that. Now, as Castle eats 0.2 of them in a week, so every 5 weeks they're going to consume one, and I'm going to get paid for that rate. So you're getting paid practically nothing, and it costs you a warehouse, track, station, trains, and you're getting nothing. Now the only way you could get anything out of that would be to buy this and run it to the warehouse. You would get some money from your production here, but it wouldn't be much. It just wouldn't justify buying it and running it. It just wouldn't do it. So don't use my advice is don't use warehouses too early, particularly in there's just not much here. We don't have much to work with. Don't use warehouses unless you do a pass through. A pass through could make sense where you'd have a pass through like this, and that could be a warehouse looking to the future to bring some more stuff in there. Maybe eventually when you expand, maybe bring wool in there or whatever. That could work. That could work. The other thing you need to look at on these is the flow of goods. These places do get stuff overland. So like Castle here, see, it is getting some pigs. It's getting 49% of the pigs that it needs overland from this pig farm out here in this region that we can't get to. Wood. See, it's getting some wood. Up here it's getting 100%. It's getting all the wood it needs overland right here. So you could think about that as well. Like you might say, oh man, how am I going to grow Castle? I can't get wood. I can't get pigs. But yeah, actually you can get some. It's not as efficient as having them connected by train, but it's still, you get some. And the fruit here, you can see, we would get it, but we don't need it yet. So when the Castle grows to the size that it needs fruit, which would be down here at 51,500, then some will start coming in overland, right? Okay, so that's so you got to think about that. So you could look at each of your cities and say, okay, are these key elements that I want? Flow of goods, grain. Okay, are they getting grain? Yeah, they're getting 73% of the grain. That's pretty good. Are they getting any veggies? They are. Look at this. They're getting some veggies. So they've got grain and veggies. They're not getting any wood, so that's the big 3 raw materials you need. And then, of course, the grain is also, they need it because they've got the bakery. So that 73% is not going to cut it because the city needs grain and the bakery needs grain. And by the way, in this one, they're very inconsistent about whether they call it grain or wheat, I think. And I know I am too. So I may call it either one. But the grain is coming there. Same thing down here. Vohms is getting grain. They're not getting the vegetables. And they are not getting any wood. So if we wanted to get immediate growth, we might take a strategy of, well, why don't we run veggies to Vohms? Because they're already going to these other 2 places, and we certainly, the grain's coming here, so maybe we don't worry about the grain first. And it's just, there's so many ways you can play this. But here's the plan that I would do. Like I said, auto signals, hook up my 3 cities, get auto lines running back and forth, and then hook in the veggies and run lines, particularly down to Vohms where they're not getting any, and then you'd have a start, and you could pass that first task. So what you have to do on the planning for this is just, what are the tasks? Make a specific plan for that, keeping in mind growing your engine, and go with it, okay? So that one's kind of simple. I managed to talk about it for what seems like an hour. I don't know how long it's been. But if you're still awake and you're still with us, here's the point where I'm going to go start talking about, well, what if you have played this? Maybe you failed it, or maybe you succeeded and you want to do better. You know, you got an office manager and you want president. You got president and you want a perfect score, whatever. So let's start talking about that. So here's the point where those of you who don't want a spoiler alert, bye. Thank you for joining. Okay, let's get into how we're going to do this. The plan that I want to use for this, and it actually brings up some points about things I didn't cover in the first plan. Just real quick, do you want dedicated passenger lines? You have to make that decision. It's a huge decision. If you want dedicated passenger lines, you're going to be laying a lot of extra track early. I wouldn't recommend it early, generally speaking, unless you're the lady. If you're the lady, the benefits are so great that it's probably worth doing. Are you going to use the special cars? With city growth, and the reason being that we know that coming down the road they're going to ask us to build 10 cities to 120,000. So that's a lot of big cities on a map that starts out with all of them under 20,000. So we're gonna do a combination of rapid expansion and city growth. The reason we're going to do the rapid expansion is to make our footprint bigger and bigger and try to surround our enemies, because there's two competitors, and what will happen on this one is they grow a fair amount early, but as soon as we, what I call poke the bear, as soon as we get rights into their territory, they're going to go crazy and start expanding all over the place. We want to cut that off at the pass. We want to have rapid expansion going, so we have two stations in every city around them as much as we can, so that they just don't have any place to go. Because if you watch how the AI grows, he has a certain little pattern he or she uses to, run large stations off of certain raw materials and run them to the cities that can use them right around them. And if we can cut off the cities so that they have no cities to go to, we can cut them off and they won't bother us so much, and they'll be much more purchasable, because that's another thing we have to do way at the end is buy them out. We can buy them out early, by the way. We can think about that. So, but not too early, because we have to actually buy access into their area before we can even access their stock. So, so we're going to do these goods exchange hubs. I'll explain that in a minute. A blend of rapid expansion and city growth. And are we going to have dedicated passenger lines? No, we're not. And the reason being that we're going to try to avoid laying too much track, particularly early. and we're going to try to get as much use as we can out of the track that we lay. So our passenger lines, our freight lines, everything's going to run on that same trunk line and then branch out to where we need it to go at the cities or out in the country at the stations. So no PAX lines, at least to start. Special cars. Yes, we're going to use them for both, and I'll explain that in a minute in more detail. But we are going to get the maximum value we can out of each train that pulls into a station. By the way, our freight strategy, that's another one I could have put here. Well, it's in warehouse usage. Here, it's down here, so I won't skip. I'll go on down this. Station type, we're going to use auto signaling at our target cities. By target city, I mean a city that we want to grow, that we kind of think of as being inside our cluster. The cities where we're targeting to get 120K, we're going to use auto signal stations there because we're going to anticipate a fair amount of volume coming in and out of there. Our other cities that aren't targeted for growth, and generally speaking, we'll use regular stations there because we want to save the money and we want to be able to expand out as quickly as we can. And think of it a different way. You can play this game with one auto signal station in a city that isn't going to get, say, bigger than 60 or 70,000, something like that. One station could probably handle everything. It really could. And once you expand it into 4 tracks, it could handle everything. But your opponent can come right there and slap a station down next to you. So we want to build two small stations back to back to lock out that city and claim it as our own. And that's what we're going to do as we expand. That's the rapid expansion portion of this. The city growth portion of this is targeting cities and putting auto signal stations there. And then warehouses, we're going to use auto because I don't, unless we have, the exception would be if we set up a warehouse out in the country that's going to gather up multiple goods to take to cities, we would use a regular warehouse there so that we could do run fulls coming out of the warehouse. But I don't see that happening, and certainly for our goods exchange warehouses, we're going to use auto signal stations. Our warehouse usage, our raw materials are going to go straight to the cities because of what I just discussed. We want to get paid right away. We want to early on fill up their internal storage in the city, and then we'll let that internal storage drive when another train needs to come in there. And manufactured goods, though, this is really a big switch. We are going to use warehouses for the manufactured goods, and we're going to try to set up these exchange hubs where cities are coming into that warehouse with whatever they contribute and taking out whatever it is they aren't making that they need. And our locations of where we put manufacturing is going to be driven by the big 6. That's this right here. It's really 7, but we want, in each of our hubs, we want to try for 6 of these 7 in those hubs. Definitely meat and pastries, period, but a total of 6 of these 7 in each of the hubs. And plus location. We want to make stuff next to the goods it needs. For example, if we have a situation where we have fruit and just a few miles away is a city, even if it's a small city, we'll set up a brandy business there, run fruit, and make a lot of money running that fruit on a short haul, which is the best you can do for freight. Make that money and then ship that brandy off to an exchange hub somewhere to feed a bigger city that needs it. So that would be location, but basically driven by the big 6. We're going to target 120,000 for our city growth. We're going to target 120,000, and for the raw materials, we're going to target a rate of delivery of 1 per week. So I went back and looked at a city that was about 120,000 on this map that I've developed in other playthroughs, and it comes out to about 1 a week that they need. The two main exceptions are wood and wheat, which are both about 1.5. So what we could do here is we'll do a calculation based on 50. So we'll take the route time. Let's say that the route, we put a train in there and we've got it loaded up, and we're going to say, okay, run full and go to that city. And we see the route time is 100 days. We're going to divide 50 into 100 and run 2 trains on that route. If it's wheat or wood, we would run 3 trains. We would add 50% more. We would run 3 trains of wheat, 3 trains of wood, or 2 trains of anything else, raw materials in that city. Now, of course, that's totally different if that city has an industry which needs that raw material. So if we're feeding a bakery and the city, then that's different. That's going to need a lot more, but we'll figure that out as we go for each of these as we put them in. Now, the manufactured goods, I went through and figured out what products are manufactured, what their demand is at about 120K level, and then calculated if our hub is serving 2 cities, how much meat do you need to be producing to keep them both happy? If it's serving 3 cities, how much do you need? If it's serving 4 cities, how much do you need? So that we can decide, so we can figure out how much do we need to expand our industries to match the potential demand out there. And what we can see, and this is something else to keep in mind, if we to grow to 119,000, we don't need a single clock, okay? You just don't. We don't need a single clock or tool or smoked ham or furniture or porcelain, probably not gingerbread. If we get the big 6 and a little bit of other goods going in there, we should have no problem getting them to 120. If we are having a little problem, then we can look at this and say, okay, what could I make somewhere, be it in my hub or out of my hub, that where could I make gingerbread? Where could I find porcelain? Is there a place with coal and feldspar, I think it is, close by that I could run a little porcelain business and fire some porcelain into the city to help it out? Or furniture, wood and wood and leather. Can I get wood and leather and maybe match it up with my meat industry to use the leather, that kind of thing. So basically our goal is to get the big 6 in that hub. So let me go back to the map and show you what that means. We would have our lines running, auto signal, Kassel to Frankfurt, and what we're going to do with the lines is we're going to set them up on auto, but we're going to prioritize, this is a little guarded trick, we're going to prioritize passengers and mail. So Kassel, if it has any passengers or mail to take to Frankfurt, it will, and then if it has any more space, it'll grab some sausage and take that down there. And the only reason we're going to have them like that so they could grab the manufactured goods is if you need them and you got to ship them, you might as well take them. You can make money and have a more full train, and it takes some of the burden off of your warehouse thing that you eventually set up to exchange the goods. So, but mainly it's for getting early money. To get early money flowing back and forth between here, we want some nice full trains, and we do want to prioritize passenger mail because you make more money on passengers and mail than you do on freight. So that'll be Kassel to Frankfurt. Then we'll have one Frankfurt to Worms doing the same thing. And then we will start loading veggies into the cities and grain into the cities. And then we'll be rocking and rolling in our early thing. Then what I'm seeing is that we're going to expand over here. And one of our we're going to have a 3-city hub, 3 target cities, Weimar, Kassel, and Frankfurt. And we'll have a line running Kassel to Weimar, and then eventually when we get the warehouse going, we'll have a line running into the warehouse from here as well as from here. So the warehouse will be sitting on Kassel, so it'll automatically get everything. And then these cities will contribute and take what they need. And then Weimar will, the people and the circumstances and how much growth we've gotten, we will probably knock down that meat industry and replace it with sauerkraut, the food industry, because it needs the pork or the pigs and salt. Nice short lines. Very good place to put sauerkraut. Run that to our goods exchange. And that leaves us free when Kassel grows. We won't need the sauerkraut, and we'll be able to put something in like, for example, the clothing that we know we're going to need to produce. There's one of our tasks will be produce clothing, which needs this wool, and we can perhaps put clothing industry, a tailor here in Kassel, and then, you know, as soon as we can, open this up so that we can run that wool over to Kassel and start producing clothing. So maybe that'll work out, maybe it won't. We'll see how the timing goes. We may have to put something else in Kassel. brandy business would be very good in Castle because there's fruit right there. So we'll probably knock down this one right here, and we'll replace it with sauerkraut, a food industry. We'll probably leave this one alone and feed it when we can, when we have the ability. We will leave this one alone, and it will be the pastries for our little 3-city hub. And then we're going to go down here to Worms, which we're also going to have to grow because one of our tasks is to quickly grow this region to 240,000 people. But what I see happening here, based on the geography and how things laid out, I think we're going to have our second hub will be in Saarbrücken. And our cities will be Worms and Saarbrücken and Cologne, because it's got flat land and there's a lot of good stuff right in here. This is a very rich valley right here. So and then there's good stuff right here, the milk and the hops that we're going to need. So what we'll do is probably, because we've got grain right here, we will keep this pastry in Worms, but it won't be contributing to these guys. It'll come in and start contributing to Saarbrücken. And then in Saarbrücken, we'll see, but we'll probably buy this and knock it down and put in like a dairy or a beer industry in Saarbrücken, because they got close by to grow it and to continually feed Worms. We'll have Cologne running to do the pigs, and then because look at this, beautiful. And then maybe we'll have a clothing in Cologne, would be perfect fit for it, right? And then we could think about, then we can get some wood going to these cities, at least these two, and help them grow. And then we've got fruit, so a brandy business would be a perfect thing to put in. Cologne would be meat, Taylor, and brandy would be great fits in Cologne. Saarbrücken would be a great fit for one of these two. I would see Worms getting the other one, either beer or dairy. So our big 6 down here is going to be dairy, not sauerkraut, because there's no salt down in this end. See, there's no salt, but there is dairy, whereas up in this area there is dairy over here, but we can't get to it fast enough. But we've got the salt, so we might as well make the sauerkraut. Okay, so hopefully that's all making sense to you. So I know that's a ton of talking. Again, I if you're still listening, then it wasn't too much talking. And if you're not still listening, it was. And either way, it's all good. So thanks for listening. That's plans for you that you can think about using yourself. And I didn't mention the rapid expansion part. Sorry. We are going to need to get out to at least 6 regions, and we are going to need to eventually take on our competitors. And eventually, there's even a task to run from Berlin to Cologne. There is a task to have an express line. So you have to have a non-stop express line, which means you have to draw a pretty straight track. And it goes through a very mountainous area all the way down here to Cologne. So maybe up through here and kind of pass by Kassel and go up to Berlin. That's a ton of track. It's very expensive to build, but it's okay. It's okay. At this point, by the time we get to that point, we should be swimming in money. If we're not going to make it anyway. If we're not swimming in money by that point, we're in trouble. So there is that. So we're going to have to poke the bear eventually. But back to this rapid expansion. Before we poke the bear, I would like to have this city and this city and this city and this one and this one, and if we can, these two. I'd like to have, and even over here, even way up here at Thorn and Danzig and Elbing, and we may even Königsberg. We'd love to have it all wrapped up so that our buddy here, our enemy, Trixie, can't go up there and expand. So if we cut her off at the pass, she's not going to grow a whole lot. She'll grow. She'll definitely grow. But she's not going to grow a ton the way she would if she can just go out and do her little thing all over the place. The same thing here. We'd love to cut off our dude here by getting this one and this one, maybe going back over here and cutting him off. And we could just rapidly run lines, you know, with 2 stations, and just run our little auto lines all over the place in order to lock up these cities and keep our opponents from expanding. So, and we'll play that by ear, because there is a point too. We have to reach 750,000 people in 6 regions. And there's a point where these are all so small and undeveloped that we may just have to go say, okay, we're going to pick one of these guys at least and go in there and attach to some of their bigger cities, or we're just not going to make it. So we'll see how that goes when the time comes. All right, that's the plan. That's enough. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoy thinking about stuff like this. This is more fun to me than playing the game. So again, you know, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. I will leave a link to the, this is a Google Sheet, and I will leave a link in the description of the video. And if you want this, you can have it. And I will tell you right now, do not ask me for access rights. You don't need them. Just go here and do File, make a copy, and that will give you a copy that you can access and change it any way you want to, do anything you want to it, and it'll be yours to work on. There's no giant calculations. This is just data. This is just information. The only calculations to do 2, 3, and 4 times that number. That's it. That's it. So you know, there's nothing special for you here. Just grab it and use it if you want it. And after this, my intention is to go try to implement this plan. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.